friends, I thought it would be fun to come on here and just gush about Troy Surratt brushes, because I can't recall the video where I used a few of his eyeshadow brushes and spoke about the new Wayne Goss release, and I thought, why don't I film a dedicated video covering the Surratt brushes that I do have in my collection. I don't have them all, but again, just using a few of the eyeshadow brushes reminded me of how well crafted I think the Surratt collection is from the brand, and that prompted me to reach for other brushes in my collection that I absolutely love, and I have different makeup products to demonstrate with, just so I could also help you decide if you had a lot of Japanese made brushes on your radar and you couldn't quite figure out which one to purchase because of the different bristle types out there. I can help clarify what those different bristle types do, and with the different makeup items that I have to help illuminate those differences and also similarities. I have my notes. What a way to repurpose old Hobonichi planners. So we're gonna start barefaced because I want to go down the line, and I also have the website pulled up. Well, that's the line. Let me pull it up now. I also have Castlevania season 2 pulled up. I gotta watch that later. I'm currently on the Surratt site, and unfortunately a few of these brushes are sold out, but I believe his brushes are sold on other retailers. Beautylish comes to mind, and I think Saks, like other luxury retail beauty sellers. I'll make sure to add those links down below. But starting with the Artistique face brush. If you notice, and clicking on the product details, Troy Surratt brushes are fude. They're Japanese made brushes. It also says that they rely on the monozukuri craftsmanship technique. I don't know what that is specifically, but it implies that a specialized technique is used to make the Surratt brushes. And if you haven't seen a Surratt brush before, this is the Artistique face brush. It's almost like Surratt brushes combine Japanese craftsmanship with a French sensibility with these names, but you can see on the handle the iridescent gradient is just beautiful. It has, I want to say, yes, it's a black matte finish for the majority of the handle, but see how it goes into this beautiful iridescent teal. It goes from a purple, like a royal purple, into a teal gradient, and you have that shine finish there with the classic Surratt font, and this is all gray Squirrel. Okay, what would you use this brush for? Loose powder application. I would even dare to say bronzer application for that diffused, hazed out effect. If you like to apply powder foundation, you could get a light serving of that. And gray Squirrel typically is going to leave behind more of a soft, airy application, leaning on the more sheer side, especially if you like your products to appear more natural in finish and not on the heavier side that can be delivered with a goat hair brush, as an example. And it just has this silky, luxurious feel about it. And I think people seek out squirreled hair brushes because if they have sensitive skin, the feel of a gray squirrel bristle is like silk on the skin. So the experience is comfortable when applying makeup while blending your makeup. And again, if you had a hard time achieving more of a natural finish to your powder products, that's why gray squirrel is a great choice. And with this face powder brush, again, applying loose powder after your foundation has set, and again, going over the different tasks, you can use this face brush to apply pressed powder, loose powder after your foundation has set, preferably because you don't want to expose the delicate gray squirrel bristles to wet product, right? Primarily, you would use gray squirrel with powder, and this is a great opportunity to lay down just a light serving of it, especially if you don't want to have your skin appear cakey when you're applying product after product. So I would use this also for bronzer, but we'll get there. And the next brush is the Artistique foundation brush. Now, unfortunately, I do not have this brush still available for $95. It's made with a goat and synthetic fiber blend. Typically is what I find with those types of brushes. And here I have the old Wayne Goss 01 foundation brush. I forgot from which set this originally came from, but this is kind of what the Artistique from the Surratt brand looks like. Maybe bigger, I'm not entirely sure, but I believe this is also a synthetic and goat hair blend. So this is kind of a similar experience you'll get from the Artistique face, or excuse me, the foundation brush. Next, we have the Artistique sculpting brush. This one's special because it is actually a mixture of gray squirrel and goat hair. And I love that combination because you see the slant design, and with the presence of goat hair, and I think specifically it might be Sokoho goat, I'm not entirely sure. Sokoho goat is a little softer than Sokoho. Sokoho bristles are meant to be more of the workhorse type, where a lot of the affordable brushes are made with that bristle because it is cheaper, but it does pick up product well and it blends it well on the skin, but it's not going to feel as soft as squirrel hair. With the presence of the goat hair though, you get a little more stiffness here that is great to develop the coloring into the hollows of the cheeks. If you want a little more of a heavy delivery here, and then you can slide it down and create more of a diffused effect near the center of the face. But I love a slanted cheek brush because again, it just wedges here nicely, but it maintains that silky feel to the skin where it doesn't feel like an exclusively made Sokoho goat hair brush where it would feel a little rougher compared to gray squirrel. But with both, I love the hybrid because again, you get best of both worlds. And next we have the Artistique highlight brush. This is a larger pointed highlight brush, and I believe exclusively all made, yes, with gray squirrel. So compared to the sculpting brush, this is not going to feel as stiff and it's going to feel more silky on the skin. And because of that tapered design, it can just pinpoint the highlight application perfectly here on the cheekbones. But you could also swap in for the sculpting brush, right? Because if you want a little more of a robust serving of color, you would use this brush. But softer serving of color, still within the hollows of the cheeks, you could rely on the tip of the brush to just swirl that color in and bring it again over the cheeks. Because of the longer bristle length, it is quite versatile in that respect. See how it could swirl and twirl and cover a pretty large surface area here, but you could also apply product right at the edge here and rely on the very tip of the brush to be more precise. I would also say you could use this to buff because again, with the brush's flexibility, you can rely on the highlight brush for buffing roles as well. The Artistique cheek brush. This one is beautifully special, and I would highly recommend that you check out Sonia's sweetmakeuptemptations.com blog because the way she describes all of her brushes in her collection, and this is one of them, because it helps pinpoint my own observations and then validates them when reading Sonia's take on these brushes. And what's so special about this cheek brush is that yes, it is made with all gray squirrel, but it's on the denser side. It doesn't feel as floppy and flexible as others gray squirrel brushes out there, which is fantastic if you want a little more color delivery, right? Because I spoke about the reason why people might gravitate towards squirrel is because of the more sheer natural finish. But if you need to dial it up a little bit more, maybe you have a blush or a bronzer maybe that you need a little more pickup, a little more color delivery, this is what the Surratt cheek brush will do. It almost has, dare I say, like a round pom-pom shape that can be beautifully precise here through the hollows, but look how it takes blush over the cheeks. And what comes to mind is the recent shade from the Suku Spring Collection 2025, this more mauve rose tone that I do have to build up on my complexion, but because of the brush's density, this is going to lay down a lot more color and will appear a little more vibrant as opposed to if I use a softer squirrel brush. The Perfectionniste Complexion brush, I will say something I wish these Surratt brushes had were labels. I know that might obstruct the aesthetic a little bit because we only have the Surratt name here on the bottom of the handle, but even if they just etched in the same way, like which brush it was, or maybe if they numbered them, because the brush names are long. To have, you know, Artistique Smokey Eye Brush Petit on the handle, I get it. that's a little much. But I think this might be it. And just to confirm, Perfectionist, yes, this is made with sable hair. And sable hair is interesting because it's firm, is elastic, is resilient. And if you want to check out the different bristle hair types, you could also visit fudebeauty.com's blog post that I will grab for a link so you could take a look. Typically use an eyeshadow, and that is true because a lot of my eyeshadow brushes do use weasel hair or sable hair, and precise in that way, which is why you might find or see a lot of eyeliner types of brushes made with sable and weasel hair, and or it's incredibly resilient against cream and liquid products where you could wash the brush more often and it won't break down as quickly as you would see from a squirrel hair brush or even silver fox hair, a more delicate bristle, and it doesn't absorb a lot of product. So I would say that weasel and sable mimics synthetic fibers from the natural hair family. And the next one up is Kolinsky. Kolinsky hair performs the same as sable, but it's softer and silkier. That's why, again, I mentioned this in another video, when the Bobo Dome Bishoto Collab Kolinsky Foundation brush restocks, I need to have it. But this guy will be great for concealer blending, especially if you just like to pinpoint apply your concealer under the eyes. You're not one to just douse the region with a bunch of makeup and have it look like just weird. Applying a touch here on the lower inner corner and taking it around the smaller parts of your face, pinpointing more blemishes. And next up, we have the Artistique Smoky Eye Brush Petit. I think I have that one, yes. This one right here, Canadian Squirrel Hair. This one's quite special because you see how small it is, but the bristles are kind of long, so you have a lot of flexibility where you could slide it here along the lower lash line, inner corner, if you want to take it through the crease for more precise work. But Canadian Squirrel is special because it says here, again, credit to fudebeauty.com, is a rare and highly valued bristle type. It has control and uniformity, and the short hairs limit its use to mainly eyeshadow brushes. You might see, well, I have seen a Canadian Squirrel, or maybe that was Pine Squirrel, I can't recall, smaller cheek brushes, but I think that's as far as it will go. Typically, yes, a lot of my, or some of my eyeshadow brushes, I would say, have Canadian Squirrel. Some of Sonia's brushes, some of Bobo's brushes have Canadian Squirrel. So you have that softness, but you also have that durability and resilience, which is nice to feel when blending out your eyeshadow. It's not going to be as soft, as flexible as Gray Squirrel, not as soft and flexible as Sabiko Ho Goat Hair, Red Squirrel, even Kazan Brown Squirrel, right? Those are going to be far more silkier, but this is kind of best of both worlds. And one of my more unique, smaller eyeshadow brushes, again, because of the length, this is fantastic for inner arc application, as I like to do, because I try to fit in as many eyeshadow colors as possible. So whatever region on my eyes that I can capitalize on to fit in another shade, I'm doing it. And with this brush, that's an easy win. And next we have the Artistique Smoky Eye Brush Moyenne. I think that means medium. That's the one I thought I had, but I don't think I have it. I think the one I have is the Grande, the large eyeshadow brush, which I believe is all Gray Squirrel, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see here. La 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 la. Yes, Gray Squirrel. And immediately, hello. This is quite large even for my eyes. So I would probably use this for under eye powdering because it's incredibly precise because of this point. And then if you want to get even more precise with highlighter application, you most certainly can use the Artistique Grande. And just for comparisons, I do have the Yano series by Beautylish collab brush. This is probably what the smaller Surratt brush will look like, and even just slightly larger. This is from Wayne's Artist Collection that released back in 2020. So maybe that will be the medium size. But all that to say, this type of a brush, I just think, I don't know what it is that is so enchanting about it. I think it's because of this pointed design that resembles like it is an actual paintbrush, and maybe why it's so satisfying to use and just satisfying to watch work on one's face, right? Yes, you could use this to further blow out shadow right up the edges here, right? To make it extra diffuse and airy around the eyes, but I think is exceptional for pinpointing pressed or loose powder application. Dare I say, if you wanted a really precise serving of contour or bronzer here through the hollows, you could use this brush. I would, why not? So again, the Moyenne, the medium one, I think likens to the sizes that I showed from the Llano series or the Wayne Goss series. But this one here, well, two, the Artistique Classique Shadow Brush Moyenne and Grande, both made with Canadian Squirrel. Which one is this one? I think maybe I have duplicates. I can't recall. I think this is a duplicate. So this is the medium and this is the Grande. Something about this type of a brush just shouts, use me for just one and done eyeshadow looks. And that's exactly what I've done in the past with this. It's like as large as my lid, so the shadow is there, and then I turn the brush on its side to diffuse color through the crease, and I could use that same brush to take color here on the lower lash line, because even though the bristles are long, they're still together. You can still feel the function and strength from this brush, where it's not so floppy that you lose control when applying your shadow, which is why I think this is an exceptional brush. And the medium size is definitely more precise if you wanted to get a little more color here on the center of your lid, or just to bring it from inner corner to outer. You could also use this brush for highlighting, but of course, if you wanted to get more precise, you could use a smaller version. And last but not least, well, we have two. I don't have the Artistique concealer brush, the Petit one, which by the looks of the photo, imagine this, but with sable hair. And again, you would just use that for pinpoint concealer work around the face. Very much of an artist or makeup artist perspective, right? To paint on and soften the look of blemishes on the skin, where they would use a smaller brush specifically or intentionally, so it doesn't take over the entire face, right? You don't necessarily want to put on more foundation on that region. You just want to concentrate the makeup to just that spot, and using a brush that small is incredibly helpful. And my apologies, I am just going over making sure that these brushes, I think, yes, that the concealer brushes and the like are sable. Correct. This is the medium sable brush, the Artistique concealer brush, but I think, well, if I remember correctly, no, this is the Grande. Interesting. So I use this with eyeshadow, but within the Surratt brand, it's used or usually paired with their concealer palette with those 3 concealer colors that is a lot more creamier in consistency. I haven't used that palette in a while, nor have I used a concealer product of that nature in a bit. But with this type of a brush, it definitely is helpful because of sable and its density, just to get that creamier texture here under the eyes and to blend it well. Also to pinpoint coverage here on the more blemished regions of your face. But I do use this with eyeshadow because sable is just savage with harder to pick up textures, the tighter textures that exist in Natasha Denona palettes and Pat McGrath palettes, or whatever other shimmer type of special dazzle, whatever. This is the one to pick it up. You wiggle it back and forth and it just gets on there. It's a go-to brush for me. I rarely use it with concealing because I just use my more medium-sized brushes that are denser for that blend. But the concealer brush for eyeshadow from Surratt is goated. I just have to give a shout out to this Wayne Goss collection because it released back in June of 2020. In my opinion, the artist collection eclipses Wayne's current collection. And I bought this myself, right? Because you could say, well, you receive a lot of PR from Beautylish, and yes, that I do. Mostly from Sonia G releases and when I work with them for their gift card events during the year. But I purchased this set myself. And I'm so happy that I did, because I think this is one of Wayne's greatest accomplishments because of the exposed maple wood, the traditional hook here at the end of the brush handle, the fact that you have gray squirrel, and you also have gray squirrel in the new collection. This is a mixture of gray squirrel and psycho goat hair, and these smaller brushes are gray squirrel exclusively. And again, a credit to Sonia G for having this blog post in describing it. This collection was inspired by traditionally made Japanese calligraphy brushes, and I think that's why it feels special. And also, this collection was inspired by his artist brush that released back in 2016 that unfortunately I do not have. I didn't get bit by the Fude bug yet, because the first Japanese made brush collection that I purchased, because I'm on my purchase history right now on Beautylish, I believe was in, well, I want to say 2017, if I'm not mistaken. Well, it says here I purchased Wayne's number 13 brush from like 2014. So technically that was my gateway into Fude. But in 2017, no, maybe it was 2018. Let me see here. Yes, 2018 was when I purchased Wayne's anniversary set, volume 2. That was when my entire world changed. Okay, I can't recall what was the pivot for me when I used Wayne's number 13 brush for the first time. I wish I was into journaling so I could have written down what product I used with it, what I observed, because when I used his anniversary 2 set, I immediately recognized how easy it was to blend out my eyeshadow and how seamless my cheek products appeared. They didn't appear muddy anymore or heavy on the skin. The finish was more airbrushed and natural, and I was like, sign me up, Fude for life. And then after that, it's a wrap. The amount of brushes I bought then on, and others too from Wayne. Remember the Artist Edit collection that mimics the original Artist collection, but the handles are the shiny black, but the shapes are similar. And from this set, expanded, right? He created smaller tapered brushes in that collection. And his synthetic collection, the 24S, still to this day one of my most beloved foundation brushes. To have a synthetic brush in a fan shape, right? Because we see synthetic brushes in all types of shapes, especially now recently. Hold on, I'm so sorry, unprepared. We're seeing a lot of the dense slanted types, right? But I haven't seen a fan brush with synthetic bristles in a bit. Let me know down below, because I'm sure they're out there. My radar just narrowed a little bit because I wasn't looking out for them. But my goodness, we're gonna use this brush today to apply our foundation because it's been a minute and I adore this brush, and of course using the Surratt brushes for our look today. So thank you for attending my seminar. And guess what also came in the mail? Because I think it was Deborah, hi Deborah, where she was like, you should have purchased all of Izamea's Wildstar lipsticks, Alicia. Check out my video where I purchased the Wildstar collection, not the entire thing, selects, because Izamea Beauty was running an insane sale for not only the Wildstar collection but was adding other products to the mix. I had to get the other remaining 2 Luckykiss lipsticks with the Spur Stick liners, because after trying Buck, that bronze shade, I had to get, let me see here, Bluff and Outlaw. Do you want to see these lipsticks? It's insane. It has this beautiful overspray. Oh my goodness, I don't even want to use them. And then Outlaw is the more red copper shade, but it has like this big, you know what this looks like? This is the Rose Fire Nectar shade in lipstick form from no. Oh, what is it? It's Pat's Quad. I think it has the Venus in Fleur. No, not, is it Venus in Fleur? No, it's not. It's another one. It's another Fleur. But this is the Rose Fire Nectar shade, but in lipstick form. Look at the, thank goodness these were, I don't know if it was 70% off at the time of purchase. I think it might have been 50. It doesn't matter. Still better than 20 or 30. We got the lipsticks, we got the brushes, we have the makeup. So that means it's time for you to come in a little closer. That's enough. And you know what time it is. It's house clip time. Moisturizer. I am whittling down my drunk elephant. And before you know it, we'll be refilling that little guy with CeraVe. I have to say though, I do like the texture of the La La Retro Cream as a primer. And if you're wondering, well, how come you're not applying moisturizer all the time? Well, ever since reading the book Skin Sobering, I learned what moisturizer can do to the skin. Yes, it can make the skin feel silky smooth, but what it does is inhibit the dead skin from naturally sloughing off, because skin by nature is not supposed to feel plush and gooey. It's supposed to have more of a dry touch feel to it. And when you apply moisturizer and not take it off, those dead skins are basically glued to your skin. It's like the goop that doesn't allow the dead skin to naturally fall off or slough off, right? And that action in itself is what signals the newer skin cells at the bottom to rise to the top. When you mechanically or chemically remove your dead skin, it's like you disrupt the process. Your skin or lower layers are like, did something like take that off on our behalf? Because we're supposed to do that. That's how I understand it. And I do see a difference. Despite the fact that I stopped using any type of exfoliator, that I stopped using Retin-A Micro, that I have these self-inflicted blemishes, they're healing quite quickly. And it's because I treat my moisturizer like I treat makeup. I take it off at the end of the day. If you want to learn more about it, I would suggest that you just grab the book, read it for yourself. I just shared this experience because I think people find it interesting, where I still think are living in a heavy skincare type of a world where several products are still being promoted to apply on your face, that you need this essence, that you need this toner, and you absolutely do not. Am I saying that you should stop all that? No, I'm saying I stopped it for myself because I feel quite liberated from using a ton of products and worrying about bringing them everywhere if I have to leave my house and having, this serum and that exfoliator. No, not anymore. Now that we've applied our moisturizer for priming, let's see what we're going to apply for, well, you know what? I'm going to do the stick. We got to do the stick. In addition to the stick, combining that with Dior's Star Filter in 3N, I do think this a lovely combination. And the way I go about this is I scrape off from the stick and then I combine it with the Star Filter. The texture from the Star Filter kind of zhuzhes up, a technical term, the stick a little bit so it doesn't appear as dry on my skin. But I do like warming it up with my finger first, and it helps the color a bit. Excited! Now we're gonna apply this with our 24S. It's like I'm painting on. That's probably why I adore this brush. But because of the fan shape, see how it effortlessly maneuvers around my face, where it gets around the nostrils in between the brows. But yes, I get it how it's a lot more flimsy, right? You're not gonna get that same dense feel as you will with this brush. And I understand how some might prefer more of like that. I feel the foundation on my skin. I feel the foundation being pressed into my skin. This is not going to have the same sensory experience, but what I find satisfying is just how beautifully soft the brush is. But see how you can, I think, replicate that same polishing feel with the denser brush by just whipping it. And again, how it gets between the more narrower spaces of the face. Oh, I love this brush. Wayne needs to make, or Sonia, or Bobo, a smaller fan synthetic brush, a little denser. I would love that. Just following the same, I think, timeline, like when Sonia created Mini Buffer from Sheer Buffer. Oh my. But this brush is outstanding. Just, my gosh. And I love it so much. I think I have a backup of this brush. I can't recall. But we love that. We love that finish. So just to grab now the Surratt brush, and yes, I won't use this guy with eyeshadow for obvious reasons, but I have to make sure this little guy is clean. So I am gently rubbing it against a towel, but I do want to grab some concealer here. Yes, I have my Natasha Denona on standby. I like to plop down both NP10 and R5 together and then use this brush to address the areas here. So you see how that blemish is like, whoa, but I'm not covering the entire area, and I'm just following up with my finger to better work the concealer into my skin, because we're avoiding the cakey achy, you know what I mean? And also now I'll follow up with the larger version and then use that same concoction to apply the concealer under the eyes. And again, because of the smaller brush head size, it's incredibly precise here, where you just place the concealer where you need it, right? It's not going to overtake the entire under eye area, which I think important in the final makeup look, not appearing artificial and heavy. Because gone are the days, like the 2015 to 2018 days, where people would just apply so much concealer. And I was one of those. I followed the trend, family. So much concealer that you had to use a sponge to take away the makeup. But I'm like, that's a waste of makeup. Why are you applying so much just to take 75% away? Again, going over the smaller portions of the face, especially here between the brows. Between the brows can appear cakey because I'm naturally drier here by nature anyway. So to ensure the makeup doesn't catch on that texture. And again, just taking the 25S and whipping it across my forehead to leave behind more of a polished finish on the face. How does that look? The skin is looking good. Now we'll apply, you know what? Let's go with powder first. We have to go with our Artistique face powder brush. I do have the Dior Backstage on. I think this is a great opportunity to take advantage of Squirrel, because this color does actually pack a little bit of a punch on me. So I don't want to apply a ton, just enough to lightly set. So I'm taking it around and just, the softness is beautifully satisfying to feel. And again, it deposits just the right amount of powder. Now, typically this brush will probably pick up more of a softer powder texture. The Backstage powder has more of a gelée baked, so it's not going to pick up as much, but that's perfect for me because I don't want a ton of powder on my face anyway. Now, you could use this for bronzer, but I'll use the Sculpting brush for bronzer instead. I think what we'll go in with next is our Prada Beauty powder with the Artistique Classique eyeshadow brush, because look how perfect this is, okay? Wiggle, wiggle, back and forth. It gets right under here, and you could even swirl the tip to get it right underneath the lash line. Look at that. Look at that. And I'm running this powder also through the brows, because now we're following up with our pencil. And as I mentioned before, I'm trying to finish my Benefit so I can continue using my Suku brow pencil. Maybe I have to start using the Benefit Precisely My Brow, but unfortunately you cannot refill it, or it's not constructed to be refillable, which was one of the main incentives for me to switch to the Suku brow pencil, because you just need to buy the body of the pencil once and then as many refills as you like thereafter. Brows are on. This is the exciting part. Ooh, we have all the cheek products to now apply. They all have to be powder because the brushes are Great Squirrel, but I do want to use the Sculpting and the cheek brush. But we'll start with the Sculpting first, and just to demonstrate the usefulness of a squirrel and goat hybrid brush, I am going in with the Chantecaille Real Bronze in Sirena. Sirena is the lighter color from the two. I also have Goa. I'm so happy that I finally found this guy. But because of how the Sculpting brush is a little stiffer, it just effortlessly picks the bronzer up. And like I said before, It'll deposit beautiful color here in a more concentrated fashion, but it will diffuse it wonderfully when you bring it lower. Okay, and this is an old bronzer, all right, but it has not turned yet. So that is what the Sculpting brush does, but also the Classique brush does in a similar fashion, except you'll have more of a precise application. And now we'll have to rely on broader strokes in this circular fashion to spread the product, right? So it's just a different application, but this is why the Classique cheek brush from Surratt is exceptional, because it's Squirrel, but it's a little dense in terms of how Squirrel brushes for cheeks are typically made, and you get best of both worlds with the silkiness, but also with beautiful functionality here, where you don't have to just use soft powder products with this brush because it's Grease Squirrel. You could use it with gel to bake textures, albeit that you're still gentle with the pickup, but because of how many bristles are in here, you'll be successful with that. And now, okay, like I said before, we can go in with, well, we could go in with several things. I'll go in with the Suku blush, again, just to see the Classique cheek brush in action. But like, I love this brush. Look how it picked up the product, but how it just glides it over my cheeks. And again, this color is a little light for my complexion, but I don't mind because I'm using the cheek brush. It picks up enough, but then the way it blends it is just phenomenal. And even though it's a smaller brush head, you see how it just floats and turns without any disruption. It doesn't have any catch when you're bringing it around the cheeks. It is just absolutely perfect. What can I say? And I don't know what it is now that I apply this blush. Maybe it's because I applied it with this foundation. So 3.5N is bringing the more mauve rose color forward. I don't know what it is, man. I don't know what, maybe that's that. Maybe that's the reason. I did apply a lot of foundation, I think. Do you think? You'll let me know down in the comments. I want to follow up with Baby Doll. I do. But not with the Classique cheek brush. We will now go in with the highlight brush because I think it'll be quite fun to do that. It's a satin finish. So I'm just capitalizing on that and applying it in and around under the eyes just to create more of like that icy hue. And then I'm taking the tip of the brush to just further buff and blend the finish so it doesn't appear heavy under the eyes. But if you want even more highlighter, I would suggest you use the highlight brush with a softer powder because the closer you get to the tip, the more flexible the push, right? And you don't want to overly bend these bristles or rub it hard against powder. And I'm trying to, here it is. The Gucci powder, I don't think a great candidate for this type of a brush because this is quite tight in the pan and I don't want to push the brush abruptly into it. I don't want to bend the bristles in that way, which is why instead I would go in with my Dior because this is a softer product. So you see how easily the highlight brush picked it up and how easily it then deposited that powder onto the skin. Now, if you wanted to use the Gucci highlighter, I would then suggest you use it, or rather you use a goat hair brush. This is the Bobodo and Yoshiki collab brush where this is a lot stiffer and I think more of an appropriate tool to use with the Gucci highlighter. This is gonna pick up a lot more than the softer Surratt brush. All right, the highlighter is on. Ooh, the cheeks. The cheeks are on. But now we gotta do the eyes. Ooh, what should we do with the eyes? I have a few ideas on standby, but I wanted to showcase the versatility of this beautifully made Canadian eye brush. So as an example, Suku shadows are just phenomenal for this type of a brush because the textures are soft enough where you could pick them up and just place them on the lid. And to demonstrate that, I'll take this duochrome, but I should also prime my lids first. This is the Pat McGrath primer that, you know, is good enough. It's good enough. Another shadow texture that will work well Canadian Squirrel is Viseart. 100%. But see how that just laid down the duochrome in one swoop, and then I take the same brush and continue to work that powder through the crease. Just for the sake of time, I'll do the same application on eye number 2. Same shadow, same brush, now on the lower lash line. And for the crease, I can use the same brush, but I'm picking it up mostly on the tip because I don't want it to get out of hand, right? So I'm concentrating the application mostly on the outer corner and also through the crease. But see how easy it is to just tap and then swirl, or tap and slide, I would say. This is why the Surratt Canadian, or so many names, the Classique, what is the name of this brush? Artistique Classique shadow brush is great for this purpose, right? And if I wanted a little more smoke, I could take that same wine shade and toss it here on the outer quarter, or I can take the smaller version of it, which technically, according to Surratt, is the medium version, and tap on even more product on the outer lid if I wanted a higher concentration of color, right? If I wanted more of this wine shade to come forward, then the smaller the brush, the more the pickup, the better the lay down. And just to show what the pointed brush can do, I originally used it to apply my loose powder, but this is what I could use this brush for, right? Just to finish the eyes, especially if you wanted to pull that shading beyond your lash line and for it to have more of a hazy finish versus more of like a hazy pointed finish, right? Because I've done that in the past, but sometimes I just like to whip it, okay? And now for our teeny tiny Canadian Squirrel brush, using the gold shade, but taking advantage again of the more flexible bristles and having it just slide. We're just sliding here on the inner corner so much that I'm taking it to the inner arc. And then I also want to apply some on the actual inner corner, but see how flexible the brush is, suitable for softer textures. I think you'll have a hard time using this brush with tighter, harder to pick up textures, because see how much it bends? It bends a lot. So the pickup power, I think, is more medium. It's not going to be high. And this iridescent shade, which I know is weak compared to other shades that take on a similar flip, I'm still going to place it here on the inner corner so that the bronzy gold color now will take on the pink flip from that shade. This I would think too flexible for liner. You could do it, albeit it will appear not as defined, but very much diffuse. And for me, if I'm gonna do shadow liner, I need a smaller, tighter brush. And I'm looking around to see, I have my I Need a Warm here. No, I have I Need a Nude, lies, on standby. And I'm just gonna take Silhouette, but using the small complexion brush, right? I wiped off the excess concealer, but the brush is thin enough and stiff enough for me to successfully plop down some shadow here across my lash line in a way that will appear more concentrated than it would with the smaller Canadian Squirrel eyeshadow brush. Now, if I had the smaller concealer brush with Sable, that would have been ideal for sure. But if this is all I have, which I don't, I have other brushes that could take on this task and probably better. But if I just had this brush on hand, I can make it happen for sure. And now for the lips. Well, we're gonna have to apply both because, and with that said, let me do a few quick swatches. All right, we have Buff, which takes on like that pinky nudie shade, and the Buff lipstick that has like that pink metallic finish. Oh, that's pretty. It's very golden pink. I know it doesn't go phenomenally well with what I have on the rest of the face, but we just wanted to see it in action. This will look beautiful with a pastel look, or even using retro, going more pink burgundy on the eyes. Oh my goodness. And next we have Outlaw, which is like more of a red coppery shade. And Outlaw, the lipstick, ooh, Again, I know it doesn't pair well with the mauve cheeks, but this shade would just look beautiful with I Need a Warm bronze. I need to do an entire video just going back into Natasha Denona bronze and then applying Outlaw afterwards. It has to happen now. It has to happen. But because I want to complete the entire look, should I do Suku's 14 again? As I'm a sucker for this shade. I can't help myself. I'm sorry. Less Line with 1N from Lisa. And Suku Sheer Matte Lipstick in 14. Ooh, does that look too warm though? It looks too... Maybe if I apply the Wrapping Lit treatment in... This is the plum shade from Pre-Summer 2024 107. That's a little better. That's a little better. I'm trying to figure out what could be. I'm going over all my Moisture Glaze shades. I know exactly what could work. The new Velvet Fit limited edition shade in 102. Yes, we found it. Putting on some lashes and I'll be right back. Friends, here is the final look, and it was a delight to film this video using mostly my Surratt brushes and featuring other favorites from my Foudet collection and delving into makeup that was already in my collection as well. Older favorites, recently added favorites. There's a Maya Wildstar Luckykiss lipsticks, but hopefully the close-ups serve as a testament to how beautifully crafted these tools are and how they have just been essential in my makeup application and, in my opinion, how flawless it looks. And I say that in confidence because I did come from using cheaper brushes with the Morphe makeup. That era has passed, but I was in it for sure. And I remember distinctly how sometimes it was hit or miss with my cheek product application, where I had to be careful with how I went in with the brush, what angle I used, what pressure I applied, if it was too much, too little, if I picked up too much product, if I chose the wrong color, because it would appear muddy and heavy on the skin. And it will have that like harsh makeup line look to it, where maybe with the filter it looked okay, but in person not so much. But now having the ability to apply a bronzer, even contour, blush light, highlighter, and it not look heavy or textured, but just airbrush natural, and depending on how much you apply, sheer, where it would appear just as soft fabrics of color just layered over each other in a way that's soft and not overbearing. It has just been an incredible experience. And to now delve back into my Surratt brushes, remembering how beautifully crafted they are, and also remembering my older Wayne Goss brushes, which prompts me to go back in my Foudet collection, specifically to reorganize my storage situation, because every time I try to find specific brushes, I go on a wild goose chase in my own collection, mind you, which is sad because everything is scattered, where I'm trying to consolidate in that I don't have a ton of drawer space, but I do have the cup holders in the deeper drawers. And I'm trying to maybe bring all my Sonias together, all my Troys together, so I don't go haywire in locating certain brushes, like my Hakuhodo brushes, my Hokudo, Nakamura Seishizuko, Eyeshadow, so much, Shikuhodo, so many examples. But hopefully this video helped in, maybe you bought these brushes, maybe you have them and you haven't used them because you were unsure of how to use them, what to expect from them, what products to use them with, because I get it. Sometimes I fall into that trap as well. It's a fun trap to be in, where you buy something because it's heavily sought out, you hear about it. For example, you might hear about this Surratt cheek brush and how phenomenal it is, but you have no idea about Gray Squirrel or the significance it has in makeup application, where you don't understand why the construction of the brush is immaculate. You just bought it because everyone else was after it, but you have it in your hands and you're unsure of the tool's magic because you just haven't tapped into it. And if you have any of these brushes and that happened to you, then hopefully this video had shed some light on their purpose, on their magic. These are literal makeup wands, okay? And why it can turn into an addiction, because when you discover what a phenomenally made tool can do for your makeup, especially for those makeup products that you haven't used because you just haven't found the right tool, and all of a sudden you do, and now it's like you have a new makeup product. Because that's happened where a powder's too hard pressed or kind of weird. It could be an eyeshadow as well, and whichever brush you use, it just wasn't the right application. But when you find the right tool and you actually get the makeup on your face, but it looks beautiful, you're done. You signed the contract. You're in for life. I get it. Let me know what's on your wish list for brushes so far, family. Again, I'm still looking at the Bobodon Bishoto collab brush, or if you have others on your radar that I need to eye as well, please write them down in the comments. But more importantly, if you made it this far, make sure you like this video, click that thumbs up. It helps me immensely. Consider subscribing and make sure you click that notification bell so you are alerted immediately of when I decide to film with brushes again, because it's going to happen. And with that said, I'll see you down in those comments, and I'll see you on here next time.